This is my story. I lost my mom at about the age of 9. It was a rude awakening for me. It was not something I was expecting to happen to me at that age. At that time, there were 3 of us from my mother, and I had a regular family, but I remember my family, we are close-knit, I remember love and all of that, and then suddenly, death came and snatched my mom away. The first thing I had to deal with was the emotional trauma of that. And even though family members wanted us to come live with them, my father refused and said we were going to stick together. And I think what I would be sharing most of all in my story today is how the 9 years that I lived with my mom and dad together, how it prepared me for the future that was unexpected, because I think that I do not look back with regret on my story. I think it has brought me where I am, and I only wish that parents would be able to breed children, that would have the values. I mean, you don't have to go through pain, through loss, through bereavement for you to be wise, for you to be prepared to face life, to take on life's challenges. And so if parenting is intentional, a child can have all of that, even in the midst of love and all that. And I think one of the major lessons I learned from my father's parenting, my father and my mother, is that they were able to balance love and discipline. And so I remember that in the 9 years that I was with my mom, my immediate younger sister is just 2 years younger than me, but the third one, which is about 7 years younger than me, even at the time my mom had her, she would ask me to wash her nappies then, but it didn't matter whether I stomped my feet or whatever. You will wash the nappies, So I was already exposed to chores like that at that age, and I was made to wash plates and all that. A lot of regular things, I remember, even though I remember my mom dancing with us and all of that, but when it came to discipline, she also had it. So I see parents a lot of time that it's difficult these days for parents to balance love and discipline. All of this was preparing me in a way that I didn't know for the future that I was going to face thereafter. Just some days ago, I remember using a line. I picked that one from learning to shine the shoe. When my father taught me that when you have applied polish on a shoe and you're going to shine it, you hold the brush lightly against the shoe. I mean, it was that deliberate about. I was in JS1 when I started washing his car. I would wash your car and you would think, maybe you took it to the, So we take his car to work and they would say, did you go to the car wash this morning? No, my daughter washed it, and that was the way we all were trained. And so when this happened, and then for 3 years we were together, I was doing the cooking I could do when the ones I couldn't do, my father would do, until he decided to remarry. And he did the best he could to make sure that he got somebody. In fact, we were a major consideration for who the next partner was going to be. But even in spite of that, you really cannot be so sure. You can't be too you can't be too careful when it comes to these things. And also, not to indict my stepmom, I think sometimes also people are coming from places where they also have not known so much love, and then we all are carrying our baggages around and then just dumping them on everybody. But I think there were some certain things that prepared me for this, and I'd like to talk about them. And I think the first thing is that I learned from my parents is that the way that you train a child really is by how you live your life around them. Most of the things that I learned, I did not learn by, even though there were deliberate, intentional trainings, but my father is the kind of person that will come back from work and will share with us how his day went. As a school administrator, he retired as a principal. He could tell me, just in the middle of a gist, I'll be hearing how he handled a rift between 2 teachers, how he handled this situation, that situation. All of that was rubbing off on me. I would hear my father talk about other people in their absence. I would watch what he said in their absence and their presence. Does it match up? Is he envying? Is he, do you understand? I would see my father. I remember one day, one of my uncles who had made it came looking for him after many years of their losing contact, and we were going to see the house that uncle of mine was building. At that time, my father was using a Volkswagen, and my uncle was using a better car. I can't remember the brand of the car. It was already very well made then. And we were driving. It was just my dad and I in the car. And as we got on that street, there was this very imposing building. My father said, I wish that would be my my brother's house, and I looked at him. You are using a Volkswagen. Why do you don't have a house of your own yet? Why are you wishing that the best house on this street is going to be your brother's house? But all of those little things actually had impact on me. They were shaping my heart. And even when my stepmom came in and we had all those issues that would usually come with stepdaughters and stepchildren, I was able to step above the hate and the challenges with love. And I remember that my siblings would come and they would tell me that this is what she did, and I would tell them that I only want to hear the positive things she has done, because this was how I saw my parents live. My mom and her siblings, you would actually not know which of us was which one's child when they were alive. That was what I knew. I was finding out about sibling rivalry was actually one of my rudest shocks and awakening. I didn't know it was. I thought if you were born together, you just loved each other, normally. And then I began to see that people from the same parents were actually struggling to relate, to love one another. I mean, it's just the normal thing to love your sibling, because that's the way. Even my father was from a polygamous family. I will see the way he and his stepbrothers and sisters related. You couldn't tell apart, which is, and some of my aunts would tell me that I was almost getting, maybe in my teenage years before I knew that this is my mom of the 4 wives from our grandfather. And that helped me, so that even when my stepmom came in and we were having all those issues, I don't see my stepsisters as step. There's no step anywhere. They're just sisters. And this extends even beyond my immediate family, that, I have family members who are not my blood today, and I really, really hold them dear in my heart. I mean, that's the way. It's a different thing if the person doesn't see me that way, but when my siblings introduce their sisters, their brothers to me, immediately, especially when you tell me you have a close relationship or I can sense it, I adopt you, you're my sister too. So I began to, as a teenager, at a point, I knew that I had to make some adjustment in my life as a result of the death of my mom. I messed up initially. I must confess that I didn't know how to handle it. And so when my younger siblings would do maybe things that were wrong, of course, my immediate younger one could take me up, so we had fights a lot of times. Daddy would come back home to come and settle the fight. But the other one, I beat her, and that girl almost had a bad self. I mean, she was a sad person as a child. I didn't understand what had happened to her until a friend of mine came to my house one day and saw her and said, your sister is very quiet. And then that was when I took a second look at her and knew that, no, this is not normal. And I could trace the origin of that, because she could at least stand where I was. I was always yelling at her because I was a child and I didn't know how to handle, the tantrums of another child, understand. So I just carried out my frustration on her. And when my stepmom came in, I was also more interested in currying her favor than in having, even though I wanted a good relationship with my siblings, but at that time too, I didn't know how to balance it. So even if she was calling out my sisters for, it might not be a big thing. Sometimes it's not even something to reprimand a child for, but I would be behind her and I would, my own can even be more than her own in helping her abuse. All I was trying to do is get this person's favor. I just wanted to be in her favor, in her good books. And so my youngest sister at the time was the one who had to endure the best, the more of that. And so she turned out to be this very withdrawn young girl and all that. And she was already in her teenage years before I came to realize that. And I was already going into our institution. And I had to, at that point, be deliberate about mending that relationship. And I remember that I would have to write letters to her, write letters, my darling, my dear, I had to deliberately mend that relationship. And I'm grateful to God that today, all of my sisters are still very, they see me, we talk almost all the time, and we have a very solid relationship. Also, I think that another lesson that I've learned is when you have values that made you, if the values that brought you here did not break you, I think you should pass them on, which is another thing I see that a lot of modern day parents are not doing. If you are able to build a company and organization because of some training you went through, and we've had a lot of stories today, how come you now have a child and you don't want the child to lift a finger? If the value made you, if it didn't break you, why don't you pass it on? So I want to encourage parents that please, if you have, values which is what my parents did for me in telling me to wash a car at certain age when some people will say, no, she's too young to do it, telling me this is how you iron my clothes. The only thing is that the difference between maybe, and this is important, the attitude with which you train a child. Because some people are telling you to do all these things, but there is this hate. So I would do stuff for my dad, and he will remember to say thank you. I was also learning all of that. All of this is also preparing me, okay? So even though you wash my clothes, thank you, because I had to live with another person, and I saw the difference that I could do all. If I like, go to that, go to his room, wash all the clothes and all of that. He doesn't even see it. He won't even do as if you did anything. And for his own children, it was a problem for them. A lot of them were suffering with self-esteem. At a certain age, my father would want to send me something, and he would want to ask me, do you have something on your schedule or whatever? When I was about the age of 17, 18, he began to do all of that. All of this was also teaching me how to behave, to other people. I want to address the issue of stepmother and stepfather, whatever. I think that every child is a gift from God. After my experience with my own family situation, it became very dear to me that I should be a mother figure to any child, and that I started calling myself a mother of many children as a teenager. I am not biologically a mother, but I have children, and funny enough, it just seems like I seem to attract them, so I have them in their numbers. And sometimes when they call me mom, I'm like, I'm mom. Okay, but it all became my passion, because every time I'm always testing my own heart to see, is it so difficult to love another person's child like yours? Because it's not so much what you do for a child, it is the attitude with which you did it. So I want every child around me to feel loved. I want you to know that you matter. I want you to know that you can be heard. And even though I'm a very firm person and a blunt person, even when I have to tell you a truth, I try to do it in a way that doesn't damage you. And funny enough, I've seen people, a lot of young people in my life, when they would, maybe like on my birthday, my last one was in March, and I would see them put things on my side, and she will tell you the truth calmly, or whatever, all kind of, but these are things that I also learned, especially with the way that my father related with me, and I think my father is a great dad. He gave us the gift of presence. My father did the best he could, to arbitrate in matters between ourselves and my, mom, and I will refer to, because that's what I call her, and we, But then I don't have any regret. I think parenting is a gift that I have given myself, for which I have no regret, and I hope that everybody, when you have an opportunity to be around a child, you would give yourself. Necessarily, you are not giving that child, you're giving yourself the opportunity, the gift of parenting. We all can have it, it's for free, and I hope that from here on we'll live our lives as one worthy of it.